So why aren't more people flocking to this stunning natural playground? I may have made a mistake here. This is truly a hidden gem. Just our little secret. Hi, I'm Justine, the nerdy half of the Breakaway Bravehearts, and today I'm at Kai Iwi Lakes. This is a greatly unknown spot. It's one that has a lot more potential behind it. You will hear the noise of some kids enjoying themselves behind me because it is a Saturday and it's a beautiful day, so there are a few families down here. But when I say a few, I'm literally talking about less than a handful. Where I am today is actually a lakeside, not the usual coastline, and it's our version of the Lake District, also known as Taharoa Domain. There are 3 dune lakes here: Lake Taharoa, Kai Iwi Lake, and Lake Waikato. And all 3 have their own unique personalities. Lake Taharoa is the biggest. It has crystal clear turquoise water and a huge, soft, white sandy beach. The white sand goes for quite a stretch, so I'm walking for quite a while to get down to the water. So that just gives you plenty of space to stretch out and enjoy. How are the locals managing to keep this such a secret? Perhaps no one comes here because it is slightly remote. We're about 35 kilometres out of Dargaville, the nearest city, which has a fairly small population itself. So getting here was a bit of a drive. You're not going to be able to jump on a tour bus or even public transport. You'll need to find your own way there. And while the roads are very well paved and wide enough, it is a little bit windy up around the hills, and there's nothing to see but the New Zealand countryside. Just farmland. The occasional mountain and river in the background, but no hotels or towering multi-storied buildings. So it does mean you have to plan in advance. You can't just pop out here spontaneously. Although, to be honest, I am currently based in Whangarei and I did just literally pop out here spontaneously today. But apart from me, there aren't that many casual visitors. Most people have brought their camping gear and have planned a longer stay so they can make the most of it. It really is an off-the-beaten-path destination. Maybe it's because there's nothing really commercial here. There's no restaurant, no cafe, there's no supermarket, no shopping mall, no cinema. You're also not going to find any hire equipment or bouncy adventure castle things, floating, jumping things. There is a fully operational motorhome park that's got electricity hookups and there's some showers and bathrooms, but that's it. You're going to have to bring your own picnic and everything else. There is a small playground for the kids on Lake Taharoa. There's no Wi-Fi or charging stations, so I wouldn't rely on iPads. You're going to have to make your own entertainment. Awesome! Thank you! That's genius! And because there are none of those commercial settings, no big buildings, no flashy lights, at night time, you get the best of the sky. There is no light pollution. So when the sun goes down, you can see every star in the sky. This is one of those campsites that again goes for peace. So the big rule is no noise after 10:30 p.m, which means you can enjoy that night sky quietly. I've popped the link below for booking campsites. You can rely on nature to provide a few tempting activities. So you can bring your canoe or your kayak and have the lake to yourself. For paddling and building sandcastles, for sailing model boats or remote control boats. And of course you can swim in the crystal clear fresh water. So perhaps it's because it's a little bit more DIY than most beaches. There are no surf lifesaver rescuers here. You have to look after yourself. There is plenty of information letting you know what it is that you need to do to make sure that you are safe. For example, because this is freshwater, not seawater, your buoyancy is less. So you need to just consider that. And also there is a sudden drop, but you can see it really clearly. So the water is like a pale blue and then it goes suddenly dark blue, and that's where your drop-off point is. The darker water is 30 metres deep, so you need to be a decent swimmer to be out there. That shallow water is great for just puddling around in or for your kids. But you do need to supervise your children at all time because, as said, there is no lifeguard patrol on the beaches. And Lake Taharoa embraces a bit more noise, so you can bring your motorboats, your jet skis, have a bit of fun down here. Apparently all the lakes are great for recreational fishing. I've heard that there is trout here, and anglers also find the clear waters great for finding native fish species. I actually don't know what I'm talking about here. I've got no expertise in this at all. If you do, please leave us some notes in the comments below. I'm more into hiking, tramping, walking, and there are quite a few options here for me to choose from. I'm going to check out and see if I can make it all the way around all 3 lakes. That's going to take me at least an hour. But there are quite a few shorter, different routes depending on your time availability, your fitness levels. I've put a link below to a website that will give you all the information on different types of tracks around New Zealand. And I recommend you check out my parihaka video, an earlier one I did, which gives you all the tips and tricks for making sure you stay safe when you're out in the New Zealand forest. The loop around is a fabulous walk, and the track is really easy to walk upon. You get to see all different kinds of natives, as well as the mix of invasive imports. The track down to Kai Iwi is a little bit rougher, but still a fairly easy walk. It's definitely got more of that bushwalk style. Kai Iwi Lake is quite different. It's got no shoreline, no beach side. You can walk down around it, and there are small pathways that will take you up. You want to be careful. The land just suddenly turns a little bit marshy, and there's your lake. Once again, that clear water, those colours, and because it's fresh, it's really vibrant. Lake Waikato is a bit of a mix between the two of them. You've got the kind of natural grasses that go right up to the edge of the lake, and you have little pockets of sandy shoreline as well. So Lake Waikato is probably the best of both worlds, and it's really quiet here. There are a couple of families that have found nice picnic spots on other little pockets of sand, but it really feels like this lake is now my lake. But as my subscribers will know, if you haven't already, hit subscribe and the notifications bell. Many of my videos have a history twist. It's just kind of my thing. So normally I tend to hang out in places that offer me something to learn. So is it because there's no history here? Well, actually, it's full of it. These are not just any lakes. They're 1.5 million-year-old lakes that are natural fresh water. They are sand dune lakes. There's an ironstone layer at the bottom, and then the sand layer on top of that, and then over those million years rainwater has collected to create the lakes. The Omamari district is actually quite an important part of early Māori history in Aotearoa, New Zealand. During the later years of Māori migration from Polynesia to Aotearoa, the Māori canoe, waka, was one of the significant ones that brought people to the Hokianga region. The waka carried descendants of Kupe, the great explorer, who had found this coastline, and he left instructions for his descendants to return. So they did. And after discovering how beautiful this part of the island was, Nuku Tawhiti, the captain, decided to settle his family in this region. Others decided to keep travelling down the coastline to see what else was on offer, but their journey wasn't so successful, and the waka was wrecked on a long piece of coastline. So that's why the area is called Omamari, to remember those ancestors. So if you're paying attention, you might see that Kai Iwi and Kai Iwi are spelt differently. They are supposed to be the same, but the colonist map makers weren't paying as much attention as you were. So the name of this lake is actually incorrect. There's supposed to be a space between the two words, Kai Iwi, meaning food for the people. Because this land was abundant. There was plenty here for people to gather. But then during the early part of the 20th century, the lakes came into the notice of the colonists, and they saw the bounty as a major economic opportunity. By the middle of the 1840s, there was growing international demand for New Zealand kauri gum. Settlers and Māori alike began large-scale extraction. There was a small gum digging camp, and then even bigger investments were tried. The Hall brothers tried to drain Lake Kai Iwi, but all this was actually pretty unsuccessful, and by the late 1920s, most gum diggers had left the area, with little to show for their efforts. If you want to learn more, I recommend the Kauri Museum in Matakohe, which I've featured before in one of my earlier videos. So maybe people avoid this area because they think that all that industry destroyed the environment. Yeah, it was touch and go for a while there, but the land has bounced back. The digging for kauri gum did expose some areas of soil, and it did knock out a lot of the native plants, birds and aquatic life. However, it was fairly obvious and people picked up on it pretty quickly. In 1928, the Crown set aside a lot of hectares just for scenic reserve, and then over the decades this grew and grew until most of this land now is fully protected. The land is really carefully managed to make sure there's that great balance between letting people enjoy the space but letting nature have what it needs. So there are quite a few rules. So that could be another reason people don't come, because you're not allowed to bring your dogs down here. You also can't light fires, and fireworks are banned to avoid wildfire risks and protect the native forests. There are a few rules about using your motorboat on the lake, and so that's mostly around designated areas to keep people safe, but also wake restrictions to help lower the impact of erosion on the shoreline. And of course, you're asked to keep to the designated walking tracks and take away all your rubbish. Just generally look after the habitat. All this helps keep Kai Iwi Lakes beautiful and sustainable, but it also means it's just not so much of an obvious place for mass tourism. Numbers have been increasing. There has been a 30% increase, in fact, but it's still a very low number. In fact, this area, the west coast of the North Island, only takes in about 10% of the Northland's tourist economy. But I guess keeping the numbers low is a trade-off that favours the future over short-term profit. It's helping us protect this national treasure for ongoing generations to enjoy. You know, I'm starting to have second thoughts about this video. Should I be sharing this with the world? I mean, it is a hidden gem. That's what makes it so special, the fact that it's kind of hidden. And we all know that YouTube isn't really the place you want to put things out if you want to keep them hidden. So I may have made a mistake here. If you've watched the whole way through, thank you so very much. But let's just keep this one between ourselves, yeah? Just our little secret. There's no need to hit share or like, and don't worry about a comment. A comment just boosts me further up in the algorithm and gets the video shared more, so we'll just keep this one between ourselves. But do come back and join me next time. I've no idea where I'm going, but wherever it is, I hope you'll be there with me. Until then, happy travels everyone.
See you on YouTube.